Every system has an architecture. Most people see the facade. This is what's underneath. Right now, someone owns $39 trillion of government debt, not as an abstraction, not as a line in a textbook. Someone holds that paper, someone collects the interest. Every single day, a portion of your tax money flows out of your country and into accounts you will never see. And the question nobody seems to ask is the only one that matters. Who holds the other end of the chain? And why do they need you to keep borrowing? We are told that national debt is just how modern economies work. Governments borrow to invest. They build roads, fund schools, maintain armies. Borrowing is normal. Borrowing is healthy. That is the story. And like most stories told by people who benefit from the arrangement, it leaves out the most important part. The part where the debt was never meant to be paid off. The part where the debt itself is the product. To understand how $39 trillion of government debt became a business model, you have to go back to the moment when debt stopped being a tool and became a permanent fixture. For most of human history, nations borrowed during wars and paid it back during peace. Debt had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Kings who could not repay faced revolts. Lenders who pushed too hard faced exile. There were consequences on both sides, but something shifted in the second half of the 20th century. Governments discovered they could borrow continuously, not to survive a single crisis, but to fund everyday operations, the things citizens expect but nobody wants to finance through higher taxes, pensions, healthcare, infrastructure. The political math was irresistible. Borrowing lets you spend now and push the bill to someone who cannot vote yet. Your children, their children, generations who will inherit the obligation without ever being asked, and the lenders were more than happy to oblige because permanent borrowing means permanent interest. It means a revenue stream that never stops flowing, backed by the one institution that can force its citizens to pay, the state. The United States currently pays over $900 billion a year just in interest on its existing debt, not paying anything down, not building a single bridge or funding a single school, just servicing the cost of having borrowed. That $900 billion goes somewhere very specific. It flows to bondholders, to sovereign wealth funds in the Persian Gulf, to pension funds in Tokyo, to hedge funds on Wall Street that buy government bonds because they are considered the safest investment on the planet. Safe, not because governments are careful with money. Safe because governments can tax, they can garnish wages, seize property, imprison people who refuse to pay. The guarantee behind every government bond is not fiscal responsibility. It is force. And ultimately that force is directed at you, your income, your labor, your productivity for decades to come. When a financial institution buys a 30-year treasury bond, it is not making a bet on the government. It is making a bet on you. It is betting that you will keep working, keep earning, keep paying into a system that automatically redirects a slice of everything you produce into their accounts. You did not sign this contract. You were born into it. The debt is not a national problem in some vague collective sense. It is a claim on your future. And the government is not the borrower in any meaningful way. It is the middleman that makes the extraction look legitimate. And the scale of this extraction is difficult to grasp until you see the numbers side by side. The United States federal government collected roughly $4.4 trillion in revenue last year. It spent $6.1 trillion. The difference, $1.7 trillion, was borrowed, added to the pile. New bonds issued, new interest obligations created, new claims on future taxpayers who have no say in the matter. This has happened every single year with only a handful of exceptions for over half a century. The deficit is not a failure of the system. It is the system. The gap between what governments collect and what they spend is the oxygen that keeps the entire debt machine breathing. Now zoom out and look at who sits at the top of this chain. The largest foreign holder of United States government debt is Japan, at over $1 trillion. China holds nearly $800 billion. The United Kingdom, Luxembourg, the Cayman Islands all hold hundreds of billions more. But here's the part that rarely gets discussed. The largest holders are not foreign at all. The Federal Reserve itself holds trillions in treasuries. American banks, insurance companies, and mutual funds hold trillions more. Your own retirement savings, routed through institutional investors, are used to buy the very debt that your taxes are paying interest on. Follow the money. It leaves your paycheck as taxes. It flows to Washington. Washington sends it to a bondholder as an interest payment, and that bondholder turns out to be a fund that manages your 401k. You're paying yourself back at a loss, with a fee skimmed at every step by people who produced nothing. It is a closed loop designed to look like public finance, elegant. if you're the one collecting the fees, and if you want to see what this extraction looks like at the bottom, when it meets a country with no leverage and no seat at the table, look at Suriname, a small nation on the northern coast of South America, rich in gold, oil, bauxite by every measure of natural resources. Suriname should be prosperous. Instead, it owes more than its entire annual economic output to foreign creditors. In 2020, it defaulted. It could not make its payments. So the International Monetary Fund arrived with a standard package: cut public spending, restructure your economy, open your resource sectors to international firms willing to extract on favorable terms. The people of Suriname did not choose this arrangement. They inherited debts taken on by previous administrations, debts that enriched consultants and contractors and political allies who disappeared long before the bill came due. Now, ordinary citizens pay the price for money they never saw and projects that never serve them. Suriname is not an exception. It is the model working exactly as designed. Borrow, extract, default, restructure, repeat. The debt never disappears. It just changes hands. And each time it changes hands, someone takes a cut. And this is where the story breaks. The enforcement does not require soldiers or sanctions. It requires something far simpler. In September 2022, Liz Truss became Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. She had been in office for days. She announced a set of large unfunded tax cuts, a plan to borrow aggressively and stimulate growth. The bond market responded before she finished the press conference. Within hours, the pound collapsed to its lowest level against the dollar in recorded history. Pension funds that had leveraged their holdings in government bonds received margin calls they could not meet. The Bank of England was forced to launch an emergency bond buying program to prevent a full systemic cascade. Within 45 days, Liz Truss resigned, the shortest-serving prime minister in British history. She was not removed by voters. She was not removed by her own party, at least not directly. She was removed by the bond market, by the institutions that hold the debt and decide trade by trade, second by second. Whether a government deserves their continued confidence, that is how the leash works. You do not need an invasion force. You just need to own enough of someone's debt to set the terms. And the terms are the same everywhere. Keep borrowing, keep paying interest. Keep your economy open to our capital. Keep your central bank independent so no politician can inflate the debt away. Deviate from any of this, and the cost of your borrowing spikes overnight. Your currency weakens, your economy contracts, your government falls, not through conspiracy, through mechanics. The system punishes disobedience automatically, and it punishes it fast. There was one leader who tried to reject the entire arrangement. In 1983, Thomas Sankara became president of Burkina Faso at the age of 33. He was not a theorist, he was a builder. In 4 years, he vaccinated 2.5 million children against meningitis, yellow fever, and measles. He planted 10 million trees to push back the advancing desert. He built roads, railways, and schools without a single dollar of foreign debt. He banned forced marriage and appointed women to senior government positions. He cut his own salary to the equivalent of $450 a month and sold the government fleet of Mercedes, replacing them with the cheapest car available. And he did something no leader in the developing world was supposed to do. He named the system. At the Organization of African Unity Summit in 1987, Sankara stood before the assembled heads of state and said what everyone knew but no one would say out loud. The debt is not ours. It was not taken for our benefit. It is the tool of a new colonialism designed to keep us dependent. He urged every African nation to collectively refuse to pay. He told the room that if Burkina Faso was the only country to refuse, he would not be at the next conference. 3 months later, Thomas Sankara was assassinated by his own deputy in a coup that multiple investigations have since linked to foreign intelligence support. The loans resumed the same year. The debt stayed on the books. The interest kept compounding. The system does not tolerate exits. It is not designed to be paid off. It is designed to be serviced forever. The debt is the product. The interest is the revenue. And every attempt to step outside the arrangement meets the same response: economic isolation, political destabilization, or a bullet. So where does this leave us now? United States interest payments alone are projected to reach $2.1 trillion annually by 2036. That will exceed what the country spends on national defense. The fastest growing item in the federal budget is not a program, not a service, not an investment in anything. It is the carrying cost of money already spent by people already gone. And globally, public debt is on track to hit 100% of total world GDP by 2029. Every nation on Earth, on average, will owe the equivalent of everything it produces in an entire year. Not because of war, not because of emergency, because the system requires it. This is the doom loop: borrow to cover the interest on what you already owe. Then borrow more to fill the gap the new interest creates. Each cycle makes the next one larger. Each cycle makes the exit narrower. And the institutions collecting the interest have zero incentive to stop it, because the loop is not a malfunction. The loop is the business model. No politician will tell you this, not because they do not know, because they cannot afford to. The moment a leader admits that the debt cannot be repaid, that it was never designed to be repaid, the bond market reprices their country overnight. So instead they talk about growth, they talk about investment, they talk about managing the debt responsibly, as if managing a trap means you're not inside it. You were told that national debt is how countries invest in their future, but investment has a return. What has this debt returned to the people who carry it? Not the bondholders, not the funds, not the banks, you. What has it returned to you? $39 trillion. That is not a crisis, that is a portfolio, and you're the asset inside it. The system keeps moving, so do we. Until next time, question the architecture. This was chapter 1 of Dominion. Begin the full series right here.